I was told by one of the coaches, the head coach, to call someone from the USOC, which is the one who did my test. Because he actually, his name is Brooks Johnson, he actually found out that my A specimen was positive, the A bottle. When they tested it, it was positive for that steroid. So I'm all nervous and everything. I'm like, well, why would I have to talk to this guy, you know? He said, well, you need to talk to someone about your test. So I was like, oh, Lord. And this is like the day of all the 8 people were training on a relay team, and that day was so terrible for me. It was like everybody knew my A specimen was tested positive. Everybody knew, because when we were actually practicing the relay team, they really put my legs through a test. It was like, okay, we know she's not healthy. We know she has a specimen positive, so we're going to run her and make sure she can be ready. So when I get to the track, everybody was already set up and warmed up, and I'm like, I thought practice was at such and such a time, and I'm sure he told me the right time. But anyway, so I had to rush through my warm-up, and then once I got on the track, it was like myself, Alice Brown, she was the first runner. I had to run the second leg, and that's usually like the best leg. If they're in trouble, at least I can make it up. See, by the time Evelyn get it, all she had to do was coast, because I was the second person, so I did most of the work. But anyway, but, you know, it's all a team effort. If you all look at the Olympic Games, you know, now you have to have at least 4 good people to run. So anyway, Alice Brown and I told her, I said, let's go out in medium speed and, you know, let's test it. This girl was blazing to give me the baton, run up on me, and the coach is looking like, Williams, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. So I'm arguing back and forth at her. I'm like, look, let's just take this, you know, well, you need to get out some. And this is what she's saying. We had a big altercation, so we went through this like 3 or 4 times, and we kind of finally get it right. So when it was my turn to give it to the other girl, she took off like a bat out of, so I couldn't catch her, and it's like this sight game. I said, oh, I see what's going on now. And at the same time, I need to go back. No, at the same time, it was just one of these days that I wasn't looking forward to. I said, oh, wow, let me just make it through this day, and then I'll be okay. So the moral of the story is, well, I did call the USOC, and I talked to Dr. Robert Voigt, who actually administered the test, and he did tell me that my A specimen was positive. And I need to have someone to witness my B sample. So I thought, okay, the coach. Let him go down there and let him do it. So got off the phone with him. I told him, like, I'll call him back in, you know, a couple of days and see. Got off the phone, and I called the coach immediately. I said, my A specimen was tested positive for, you know, the drug, Dianabol it was. And he was like, tested positive? He's talking about, what did you take? I said, what do you mean, what did I take? He did not assume any responsibility. At that time, he was like, look, you are on your own. You are on your own. I don't care what happens. You're on your own. So I was like, wait a minute. I got so upset at him, because how could you ask me what I took when you know what you gave me? You know what kind of program I was on and everything. He didn't assume any responsibility. He threw me under the bus. You know how that is? Threw me under the bus. I said, well, what am I going to do now? Who am I going to call? Who would trust me? Who would actually stand up for me? At the time, I had a good dear friend. He was my agent, and I talked to him. His name was QB Segomi. He's from Guyana, and I talked to him, and I told him what was going on. And I asked him if he could help me, but he told me to tell me the whole story. So I had to break down, and I told him everything, and he said, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to try to handle it. I'll get one of my attorneys to witness the test. He said, in the meantime, just, you know, stay by the phone, and, you know, I'll let you know what's going on. So I said, okay, well, fine. That kind of relieved me a little bit. So I had to, I did what he told me, but I also had to contact the coach to let him know that I wanted to talk to him and tell him about my A positive. So he said, okay, I want you, he wanted to meet me and the coach. So when I told Chuck Divas about it, I said, we need to meet and we need to talk to the sprint coach, because I'm trying to save my spot on the relay team. So he didn't want to go. I said, you have to go. You have to go. You have to go with me, and you have to tell the truth. So we finally met with the sprint coach, and he He said, Chuck, he denied everything. He said, I don't know what she did. I don't know what she took. I don't know any of that, what's going on. And I said, how could you not know what's going on? Nothing. How could you not know what's going on? So anyway, and at that point, I was like in tears. I was crying. I was just so upset because I told Brooks Johnson, I said, look, this man gave me every drug there is. I said, he put me on a schedule. He knew everything. And the sprint coach, all he did was just looked at me in pity and said, well, he's sorry, but, you know, he already decided that my test would jeopardize, you know, the relay team. So I did get my results for my B test. It was negative, which meant that I could still run on the team, but they call it inconclusive. When it's inconclusive, they throw the A specimen out. It's almost like I'm clean. And a lot of other athletes beside myself, 49 of them from America, was also tested positive, but they threw it out too as well. So after that, I tried to get in touch with the sprint coach. He didn't want to talk to me, so I never ran on the team. I was blackballed. They actually said, look, we can't have you on the team. Because just like with Marion Jones, because she lied, all the three other girls, they have to give them medals back. Right, so. Mm-hmm.
I just have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know in recent years we have been more diligent, but then like you said, Ms. Diane,
Mm-hmm.
it's always the coaches and the agents who give these things
Mm-hmm.
to these young kids.
Right.
Now, my understanding is steroids are not addictive, though, you know, like street drugs or even...
It can be. It can be. It depends on what level. I mean, if you look at a bodybuilder, they are really obsessed with their body, so they will do whatever they can to get a little inch here more on the bicep. Mm-hmm. So it's addictive, and that's what happened to me. I became addicted to it because just like a crack cocaine person on crack, I became addicted to it because I didn't feel...
Keep it, but you didn't continue because it wasn't making you well. So
well, I became addicted during the time that I had it. But during the time that he gave it to me, I was an addict, and he knew it. And because I didn't believe that I could actually compete without it. And so that's what happens. You know, you become the... Yeah, you...
Or your ambitious addiction.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole part of the steroid episode. I mean, nowadays, I just want to go back to the story. Although I didn't get a chance to compete for the U.S. Olympic team in '84, I decided, okay, I need another coach. Now, who's going to coach me? So I went to John Smith. He was the coach of the men UCLA team. And he was basically coaching the guys, and I was like one of the guys, and I was like, I think I need a more one-on-one, maybe a female. So I talked to my agent again, and he talked to Pat Connolly, who coaches Evelyn Ashford. And we got together, and she campaigned for me, and she basically got me in shape because once my body was clean without the steroids, I came back to my natural self. I mean, although I couldn't walk, I couldn't run, I couldn't do anything for like 3 months. It was a horrible experience. I mean, my whole menstrual cycle, I mean, it was just a horrible experience that I went through. And but she got me stronger, and we decided to go on a drug campaign. And I said, I wanted to do something for the other young people. I don't want them to go through what I went through. So I decided, and we decided together to do a plan. I went before national audience, halftime Laker game, and I said, look, I'm Diane Williams. I took steroids. I threw the coach under the bus, and everybody was like, wow, because I didn't tell my family. But my mom, she always watched me on TV, and she called me one day, and she told me, she said, something about you just don't look right. She said, whatever you're doing, you need to stop. And that kind of hit home. And I went before national TV, and then I went further. I went to the United States Senate under Senator Joseph Biden, who's actually, I guess, trying to be the vice president. But this guy he's straight up, and I went before the Senate, and I did a testimony.